Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons. Sign up for the Shannons Club. Kenworth Trucks Australia. Pace Farm Eggs.
So today's the last episode of the USA 2024. Of course, not possible without Shannons. It's a reflection on Shannons as well for their support in terms of the content that can be found outside of Australia that makes excellent viewing. And it's such a privilege to be able to bring that to you. So the last day, just before the flight back to Australia, in a motel not too far from Dallas Airport, and driving this morning about an hour away to round off the USA episodes for 2024 with nothing better than a junkyard, right? So again, it's one of these, I have not been to this place before. We'll see what we can put together and bring you as an episode out of Sunset in Texas.
Well, around about an hour's drive northwest of Dallas in Texas, we found this place here. It's Browne's Auto Salvage. Over 30 acres and over 4,000 cars here. There's some classic stuff here. We've just arrived, haven't been around yet, so let's take a look and see what is here. What an awesome place to be here in Texas. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing pretty good, Fletch. It's nice to have you here. We've just been doing this my whole life, and we get all kinds of visitors from all over the world, so it's nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Now, I don't think there'd be a car guy on the planet that would not want to be here. But before we go any further, in terms of the ratio, like late model stuff to classic stuff, what are we looking at here?
Fletch, I'd say we're probably 70-30, probably more old stuff than new stuff. So we pride ourselves on being a classic auto salvage. The late model stuff, we buy it when it comes in and it's cheap. It's predominantly classic cars here.
So with your parts, Jeremy, do you keep them within the United States, or with demands these days, are you sending them to other countries?
So we're finding with the growth of social media and with our social media pages, it's definitely expanding all over the world. I normally ship a couple containers at least once a year to like places like Denmark, Australia. We send stuff to Australia all the time. Africa, Northern Africa even. I just had some people from Slovakia here yesterday, actually. So
that's amazing. I love to hear that, because that's parts of the world that never received, like Australia in a way. We could not go to our dealerships in the 60s and 70s and buy the range of United States cars. You know, we had the derivatives that were built Australian made, and they were great cars. But when we get back to the real America, parts of Europe, well, same deal. So those guys are now in the position where, hey, we want this stuff, and 50 years later, it's in demand.
And yeah, and Fletch, honestly, I think it kind of goes both ways. I mean, you meet some guys here in America who, I mean, for me, I think the Falcon that they continued in Australia, that once they dropped the name here, is actually a really, really cool car. Yeah. And I think it's just, maybe it's a thing of people wanting what they can't have, or something that's hard to obtain to them. And it's the stuff that sells here that I sell in America. It's not the same stuff that I sell overseas. For instance, like your Europeans, a lot of your Europeans, they love the big 50s, 60s, 70s American cars. They want the 4 doors. They don't necessarily want the 2 doors.
They want the turnpike cruisers.
They want something they can pile all their buddies in and go to the pub.
Now, Jeremy, what's your thoughts on parts in general for the old cars? So we're talking late 50s, 60s, 70s. I've asked this question before to other people, but it's always interesting to hear the answer. Are the parts drying up, or are they still out there? Would you call it in plentiful supply, or are things starting to thin?
So as far as the parts go, Fletch, it's It depends on the car you have. If you've got the oddball cars, the AMCs, just the different stuff that most people don't have, then and you're not getting into that reproduction world of the Camaro or the Mustang or something like that. The Cadillacs even, they don't do a lot of reproduction. There's a few sites that do some reproduction stuff, but as far as the oddball stuff that doesn't get reproduced and repopped now, that it's drying up. I mean, every day we're going to auctions that we're competing with scrappers that are just buying the cars to go crush them and melt them down. And we do everything we can to save them. As far as, I mean, even after the auction, we approach them and, hey, we know you gave this much for this car. Would you take a little more and let us have it? There's a huge market now for like mid-70s big GM cars, your Caprices and your Impalas and stuff like that. And there's a giant market for it now because guess what? That's what all got destroyed on the dirt track and, in the demolition derbies and stuff.
Tell me if it's me, but I think it's very cool to have a railway line out in a regional part of any state. I just find them interesting. Outside Browne's Auto Salvage, there's one of the main lines here, and a freight train comes through here around about every 20 minutes. And just for a moment, Classic Restos, Trains Edition. This particular railway line outside of Browne's Auto Salvage connects Los Angeles with New Orleans. 3,211 kilometres. And major stops include Houston, here in Texas, San Antonio and El Paso, as well as Tucson in Arizona.
When I was a kid, I loved cars. Still do. The 57 Cadillac Eldorado Browne was the most advanced car in the world. Cost more than a Rolls. Hand-built with a stainless steel roof, cruise control, electric seats, and would you believe, air suspension. American iron. It's a passion Shannons understand. That's why they insure my daily drive, the caddy, my bike, even the house.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
Your story began in 1971. It's part of an endless tapestry that tells the story of our nation. It connects innovators to artisans, forests to houses, from the largest of operations to the smallest of outcomes. It's heritage. It's a legacy.
Own a classic or two? Make sure they're insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646. And for more information regarding insurance and other services where Shannons may help you best, visit shannons.com.au. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Four-door cars, as you alluded to as well, Jeremy, once upon a time the two-door cars were cool. And my view is that a lot of the two-door cars, they're harder to obtain. A lot of them were raced. They swapped engines. They had 100 paint jobs put on them. But that's where I believe a four-door car, not only are you getting more car, this is just my opinion, you're still getting your great engines and your drive lines and what have you. But the four-door car is the one where you've got more chance that it's been parked up in a barn for the last 30 years. It's an original car. It's never been abused. It's got a beautiful interior. Yep. And essentially, you have a fantastic car.
Oh, Fletch, of course, yeah. I mean, we get them all the time that these four doors are in so much better shape. They were more taken care of because they were the family's vehicle that, the family depended on that vehicle. They weren't just some hot rodder's toy. The four-door cars, to me, more windows, more view. I mean, even from in the car, I mean, you sit in a four-door hardtop car and you got all the windows down. Yeah. Boy, it's a different feeling than being in a two-door.
Well, isn't the pillarless design, how cool is that? I've always referred to that's probably the closest thing to a convertible that you'll get with a turret on it.
Oh, 100% as far as airflow and the view you get. That you don't want to pull up to a show in a 69 Camaro and there's 120 other 69 Camaros there. No, you want to pull up in a show and be the only 76 Century wagon sitting there, and it's just different.
How many times has a car gone to a car show that's got a $100,000 paint job, an old patina, something like this pulls in behind us and the crowd just goes,
Swarm.
Hanging around that one there.
You 100% swarm the patina cars, and we drive these. You know, this car, you know, it's got some stuff sitting on it now, but it runs and drives, and we've drove it to shows, and it gets a ton of attention.
Series 62, 1956 Cadillac Fleetwood sitting behind us here. Jeremy, it's going to be 100 degrees here today. What's the story on the rattlers? Got any rattlers around here?
No rattlers.
Oh, that's good. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, there are some bull snakes and rat snakes, but they just tickle you. They won't hurt you.
I thought I was totally out of the zone then. No, that keeps things interesting. This car behind us, what's the story on it?
So we've got this car probably 7 or 8 years ago. It's got some rust in the floors and stuff like that.
A car like this, does it come to you, or you got to go looking for it?
It's a mixture, especially since our social media pages have taken off. These cars sometimes people are messaging us going, hey, you know, look what I've got. You want to buy it? Sometimes it's, you know, we're at an auction or an estate sale or something and find it. It's definitely a mixture of come to us and go look for it. But a lot more recently has just been come to us because of the following that we've got on social media. So it's definitely been helpful as far as sourcing new cars to buy and stuff.
We appreciate you having us here today, and I'll give you a plug. Your social media page, where can people find what you do, Jeremy?
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They're all Browne Auto Salvage. Browne has an E at the end of it, so we're fancy. We like to drink our drinks with our pinky up.
How's this on Classic Restos? Here we are at Browne Auto Salvage at Sunset, Texas, and this is a customer. How you doing, Vince?
I'm good, Fletch. How are you? Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too, sir. Are you enjoying yourself?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay, now you got yourself there a 4-barrel, you got a Rochester, you got a Quadrajet. What's the story there?
It's for a 70 Eldorado.
Beautiful.
And they're really hard to find, so this is the place to come for your old Cadillac parts.
How cool is that?
It is.
There's no better start to the day than to come into a place like this and walk out with a 4-barrel.
Yeah. Good way to start your day.
Yeah, and it's even better when they're all wide open. What do you say, Vince?
Yeah, it looks like it came off a running engine, but I'm still going to take it apart and look at the inside of it. Make sure it's probably going to need a kit. But yeah, these are really hard to find, these older car parts.
I can still smell fuel. It's probably still got a bit in the bowl, maybe.
It's either me or the carburetor. It could be me.
Yeah. So you a happy customer here,
Yeah.
dealing with Browns?
Yeah, I've been coming here for a while now.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to come out here. It's fun to come out here to see all this old iron.
Vince, wonderful to catch up with you. Have fun with that, and really nice meeting you. Thank you.
Pleasure is mine, sir. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
I'm Trent Browne, and I'm the owner of Browne Auto Salvage. And we have been at this location since 2005, so we're working on 20 years. I've been in this business for probably 40. We're sitting on 38 acres, and we've probably got, I usually say, roughly 4,000 cars. Haven't counted in quite some time. I guess one of these days we'll spend the day counting. We actually stock a little bit of pretty much every make here, anything we can get our hands on. We are definitely focused in the classic car market, but we do handle all sorts of vehicles up until a lot of the late models. But we are mostly at this point probably 70% classic cars and 30 of what we call the late model stuff. We can't help but, you know, normal cars come in every day. If you're in the business, you gotta get it all. So, well, back in the day, you know, we're talking about 60s, early 70s stuff. These cars just pretty much ruled the roads here. I mean, I was a kid then, but I remember that stuff. I remember it well, and I've talked to my sons about it and told them, and they've pretty much grown up around it. So we're kind of all pretty much old school here. So it's just something we enjoy. Fletch, this is the start of the place. We're kind of a little disorganized here. We're getting so much coming in. It's amazing how much of these things we get calls for every day. But this stuff just comes out of the woodwork. I mean, 30 years ago, you know, I was bringing cars in, and yeah, they were a lot cheaper then, but there's just you just never know from day to day what we're going to get a call on.
Trent, I'm right at home here. This is a beautiful place. I love your road system that runs through here.
Well, Fletch, it's pretty straight and organized, I guess. But these roads get pretty rough. We've got a spot down here towards the end that's pretty much like quicksand down there. So I don't know if we're going to make it through that or not. We may get down that way here shortly and see what it looks like. But
Trent, how hot does it get here?
it'll get to 110, 115 degrees here in the summer. So it's really rough out here when you're trying to work and get things done. You can't hardly touch these cars. You do burn your hands on these cars out here working in the summer. It's brutal.
It's amazing just standing here at one random spot that we've just pulled up at, and just looking around me, you know, we've got Buick there, we've got Ford there. The list goes on and on. We've got a early model Valiant there.
We've tried to keep some makes together here, but it's really hard to do. When we first started, it was like, hey, let's put all the Chevrolets in one row, let's put all the Fords in one row, let's do all the Buicks and so on, and Studebaker. It's just hard to do. We'll come to areas that I will have tried to keep a lot of them together, and sometimes it is like that, but it's just overwhelming. So we figure by keeping these cars straight that at least they're accessible, and we've got, can get to the parts.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man. The Falcon Squire wagon was unloved in 1964, but turns heads today. The Americans call them woodies, but the panelling, it's just fiberglass and plastic. But it's a passion that Shannons understands, which is why my Fords are insured with Shannons. And now, so's the home.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
Your story began in 1971. It's part of an endless tapestry that tells the story of our nation. It connects innovators to artisans, forests to houses, from the largest of operations to the smallest of outcomes. It's heritage. It's a legacy.
Most of these cars have pretty good sheet metal. The only rust we really get in this area are typically like floor pans and lower quarter panel rust, and we do have some lower fender rust. Any of the cars that come in here that are real rusty, they've ended up here from other places, but we are stocked with a lot of good sheet metal.
When you think about it too, like 50 years ago, people would hate that in a car and they'd trade a car in because it had that rust. And nowadays, these are the cars we buy because when you think about it, it's an easy fix most times. The amount of replacement patch panels you can buy now, lower rear quarters, floor pan sections, rocker sill panels, you can get all this stuff now. And if you can get a classic car, you got to remember it's like 50 or 60 years old. If you've just got a few rust repairs to do, at the end of the day, I don't think that's any big deal.
As far as repairing any kind of rust in these cars, like you say, a lot of the panels are available new, except for some of the cars that are not as popular as others, like a lot of your big cars, such as these large Buicks and Cadillacs and some of the Mopar stuff. But we do sell a lot of the cut pieces. We cut some of the craziest pieces out of these cars that people order, but a lot of that you just can't get new. So we've saved that. We've got a lot of cars here that we've accumulated out of the 50s. It's amazing how many of those cars still survive that are out there, but our goal is to rescue as many of them as we possibly can, because a lot of people say that generation is dying off, but I don't believe that one bit. There's lots of people out there building 50s cars, and I believe there always will be. 53 Ford car there. And then we got a 54 Ford, that's a glass top. You don't see many of those. That was a Crestline glass top. That one's a real rusty one, so kind of beyond restoration. We got a another 53 Ford and a 53 Mercury sedan, as well as a couple of 57 Fords, 56 Ford. Got a 63 LeSabre sitting here sideways. We're looking at a 69 Thunderbird. These are a couple of 1970 MGBs. This here is a 1960 Rambler wagon. That's a 66 Rambler convertible, 97 Lincoln. That's an 84 Volvo 240 wagon. There's a 57 210 four-door hardtop, 56 210 Chevy sedan. That one there's a 55 Buick Special. There's a 75 Dodge Coronet sedan. We've got a 74 AMC Matador and a 71 Plymouth Fury. Here's what's left of a 78 Trans Am. That is a 75 Super Beetle, a 71 VW 411 wagon. That one there is a 71 VW Squareback. Now there is a 49 Ford, but that is not a true convertible. Someone's cut the roof off of that car years ago. Old rough old 55 Chevy, another 50 model Ford. There's a 62 Fairlane, and that one is a 50 model Plymouth sedan. We got a 55 Plymouth Belvedere. There's your 57 Dodge Custom Royale. There's a 69 Chrysler 300, 58 Chevy Bel Air, the 55 Oldsmobile. Here is a 68 Plymouth Sport Fury next to a 66 Plymouth Sport Fury. That's part of a 39 Buick front clip sitting there. We've got a 37 Oldsmobile. That's a 41 Chevrolet Coupe. There's a pretty rough old 51 Plymouth. There's a 62 Buick Electra, 55 Ford Fairlane, a 63 Ford Falcon wagon, and a 52 Ford sedan. Getting into some old Eldorados here. This one here is a 70 Eldorado, couple of them. There's a couple of 69s here as well. And then we've got a 74 Eldorado here on the end. 55 Buick Special, and that is a standard shift 3-speed car, 2-door post, which is considerably, you don't see many of those. It's a 56 Ford Custom Line.
Where does this place go back with you? What age were you, and when did you start getting involved with cars or collecting or parts of any nature?
I'm going to be honest, I was probably, a lot of people are going to find this hard to believe, but I would have to say I was 2 years old. I had a fascination with old cars even at that age. I think it was Packards that probably pulled me in. I started learning my makes and models pretty quickly by watching cars go down the road, and they were pretty amazed at what I was teaching myself even at that age.
So, Trent, on behalf of everybody watching, it's a big thank you because it's guys like you that can give car guys and car gals the parts they need for their restorations, and that's important. It helps to keep our dreams alive. And again, thank you very much, Trent.
I sure appreciate you coming to see us, Fletch.
This was the final episode, number 8 of the USA 2024 trip, with a big thanks to Shannons. Every year, the challenge is to find material to bring to you from the United States. It's from automotive roots here that gave us the great vehicles that we had locally manufactured in Australia. This year comprised crossing 13 of the wonderful states of America, around 7,000 kilometres of driving. We started in Detroit, featuring the Pontiac Museum, its early days, and the days forward that they can look forward to with its evolving progress. Then David Marchioni in the astounding bubble car collection. Then it was on to Pennsylvania, where Stan Sipko took us around and showed us the latest happenings from the AACA Museum. Moving through York County in regional Pennsylvania, private guide Joel Johnson showed us his beautifully restored 1971 SE Charger, along with his current restoration 1968 440 RT Coronet. No stranger each year to the USA Mix is a trip to Ohio and a visit with Murray Park. This time his 1970 Imperial graced the Fletch camera lens for the first time. Off to Auburn, Indiana, where the National Auto and Truck Museum made up the next episode and home of the Cord Duesenberg Museum. First time on Classic Restos, a trip to Bowling Green, Kentucky, hosted the incredible National Corvette Museum, a must-see for any classic enthusiast. Next, it was further down in the south to White in Georgia. Dean and Jeff Lewis gave us some southern hospitality with an exclusive drive around Old Car City, USA, an absolute sight to behold. And today we round off here making more lifetime friends from the USA. Trent and Jeremy from Browne Auto Salvage, Sunset in Texas. Over 30 acres, 4,000 vehicles, so much sheet metal, so many stories. This episode, again, like all filmed here, was an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed everything you have seen on the 2024 USA trip, with a big thanks to Shannons. And I want to thank you so much for coming along with me for the ride. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, signing off from Sunset in Texas, United States of America. Thank you for watching. Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons. Sign up for the Shannons Club. Kenworth Trucks Australia. Pace Farm Eggs.